Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Kassandra and I'm going to guide you through this spring equinox flow. So the spring equinox or Astara really represents the eros of life. So if we think about the deep slumber of winter, spring is now here to wake us up, to give us this boost of energy and optimism that we probably need at this time of year. So this is going to be a very heart-opening flow, so quite a few backbends to really tap in again to this eros of life and this new vitality and energy that is accessible to us. And we're also going to be doing a little bit of core work as well. So working on strengthening and tapping into this inner fire for energy once again. I would say it's more of an intermediate yoga practice. We'll be doing poses like wild thing and just, a little bit of core work and backbend. So intermediate in nature, but I'm not using any props for this class. And after Savasana, just so you know, we are going to finish with a little bit of breath work. So with that being said, let's begin in child's pose. And we're going to do the seed version or variation of child's pose. So Balasana, keeping the knees pretty close in towards one another with the arms back, and then just folding on down. So if winter were to represent the seed being dormant, deep inside the soil, spring is really this first emergence of the seed peeking up and beginning to bloom or making its way towards a full bloom. This equinox is really about potential. It's an invitation to set things in motion. So ideas that you may have had, things that you've been contemplating, now you're being supported to actually walk the walk. So just take a few breaths here, really focusing on sending the breath through the back body. So as if you could breathe into the back of your lungs, feeling your shoulder blades widen on the inhale and soften back down on the exhale. And we'll transition from here into Sphinx pose, just a gentle heart opener. So you can slide onto your belly, reaching your arms out in front of you. Your elbows are roughly underneath your shoulders, palms facing down to the mat. Spread the fingertips wide, push into the tops of the feet and push into your fingertips and knuckles to lift up, roll your shoulders back. And almost like you're pushing into your hip bones here, pushing into the pubic bone to lengthen and stretch out of your lower back, straightening through the backs of your knees. And we'll add a little bit of core engagement from here. So we're going to transition from Sphinx to forearm plank, keeping our toes pointed. So we're going to inhale into Sphinx, finding a back bend. And as you exhale, you're going to tuck and curl under, either just lifting up and staying on your knees or floating the knees up and kind of gazing towards your belly button. And then inhale, set the hips back down, nice and slow, back bend. Exhale, round and contract. Push into your forearms and lower. Two more like this. Inhale, Sphinx. Exhale, forearm plank. Last one. And coming all the way back down, let's find a quad stretch from here. I'm going to bring my left forearm down and rest my forehead on my arm. Bend into your right knee, grab a hold of your right foot as you pull that heel in. Think of pushing your thigh into the floor, and again here, pushing those hip bones into the mat. So lengthening your tailbone to really get the stretch into the quads and not into your lower back. Let's switch sides. So bring your forehead onto your right forearm, bend into your left knee and pull back. Keep your knees about hip width distance apart here so you're not splaying the legs open wide. And we'll release. Bring your hands beside your chest, 3 little baby cobras. So push into the tops of the feet. Inhale. Chest and hands come off the mat. Squeeze your shoulder blades behind you. Exhale, lower back down. Twice more like this. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale, lift. And exhale, release. Set your palms down, push into the floor, Bhujangasana, your cobra pose. Elbows are bent and hugging in, shoulders are pressing down. And it's not just my arms working here, I'm really strengthening along my spine to hold myself up. And let's release, push back into puppy pose. Stacking your hips over your knees, walk your palms and your arms forward as you melt the forehead down to the mat. Keep your arms active so the elbows are lifted off the ground, and think of almost pushing your armpits and shoulders down towards the mat. So the beginning of our back bends here. And lifting all the way up. Let's find downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Tuck the toes under and lift your hips up. So hands are shoulder width distance apart, feet are about hip width distance apart or so. And make any movements that feel good here as you stretch through the back of your legs and relax your neck, relax your head. And drawing your lower belly in and up so there's a bit of core engagement in the pose to support you. Let's extend our right leg up towards the sky, bend your right knee, open up your hip and lift that knee up as high as it can go. Come into your low lunge. Right foot steps forward to the top of the mat, back knee comes down. So I have my right knee directly over the top of my ankle. You're either going to stay here or you're going to add a quad stretch. Left hand stays down on the mat, right arm circles back. Grab a hold of that back foot as you pull the heel in. Adding a little bit of a back bend here, roll that right shoulder back and see if you can almost lift your chest so it's facing up towards the sky. Still pushing into your big right toe, melting your hips down. Carefully release the hold of that back foot. Extend your right arm straight up, tuck the back toes under, and lift that knee off the mat, coming into your easy twist. This is a transitional pose, so we can find Vashisthasana, our side plank, over to the left. So you're gonna stack your right leg on top, push into the mat, and lift your hips up. From side plank, we're coming into wild thing. My right foot is gonna step back behind me. I'm gonna push both legs and feet into the floor as I arch back, big back bend. And now here's the tricky part. We're gonna come onto a side forearm plank to the right. So transition back through to center and come down onto your right forearm. Roll over onto your right foot and extend your left arm up. You can probably tell where we're gonna go with this. We're gonna do a forearm wild thing. You're not gonna go as deep into this one. Left foot goes back, left arm reaches up and over. From here into our dolphin pose, so bring your left forearm down to the mat and lift your hips up nice and high. So building up that internal heat, feeling the activation. Keep trying to lift the crown of your head off the floor. Let's bring our knees down to the mat. We'll come up into camel pose. You can do this with toes curled under or pointed back, whatever feels best to you here. Keep your knees hip-width distance apart. Scoop the tailbone under. Pull up through your lower belly. Squeeze your shoulder blades behind you as you push your hips forward. And maybe you hold here. You can also grab a hold of your heels. So big back bend. Coming back up through to center. Set your hips over onto your heels, toes pointed back. Let's find rabbit pose, a really great counter pose after back bends. So almost like you're doing a seed child's pose, but hold on to your heels and just rock up kind of like between your forehead and the crown of your head. It should feel like a nice traction along the spine. And coming back into this seed version of child's pose. Take a moment to really pause and feel the effects of that powerful flow. You know we'll have to do it on the second side. Spring equinox is also about finding balance. So even though we are starting to really activate and wake up and energize, we don't want to overheat and overdo it and overexhaust and strain ourselves. And when you're ready, downward facing dog, stretching your arms out in front of you and lifting your hips up. I'm not doing any vinyasas in this class, but of course, if you wanted to do them at home, now would be a good time to add one. Otherwise, just stretch out long into this downward dog. And getting ready for the second side, reach your left leg up, bend your left knee, open up your hip, really get that left knee up as high as it'll go before stepping through into your low lunge. Back knee comes down to the floor. And we're coming here into our quad stretch, emphasizing a twist and a back bend. So my right hand is underneath my shoulder. I'm going to circle my left arm up and back, grabbing a hold of the foot without lifting my hips up. Keep them melting down. And then almost lean more into your right hand and roll that left shoulder back. You can almost push the foot into the palm to stretch more through your shoulder. From here into your easy twist, carefully let go of the hold of that back foot. Left arm goes straight up to the sky. Back knee lifts up overhead. Take a moment to really get grounded. We're coming from here into Vashisthasana, side plank to the right. So my left leg stacks on top. I'm pushing down into the feet to lift the pelvis up higher. Into wild thing, left foot steps behind me. Left arm reaches up and over. Really trying to lift up through the hips. A little bend in the right knee is fine. And we'll come from here into a form side plank to the left. So slowly come back through to center and come down onto that left forearm. Roll over onto the outer edge of your left foot. Right arm stretches up to the sky. Into your form, wild thing. So it's not going to be quite as deep, this one. Just a bit more to coordinate. Into our dolphin pose, bring that right forearm down to the mat, walk your feet in. Keep trying to reach your chest back towards your thighs. Don't let the crown of your head touch down to the mat. Keep pushing yourself back. Into our camel pose, knees come down, keep them hip width distance apart. Stacking your shoulders directly over your hips and your hips directly over your knees. So you don't want to be back here. You're really trying to push the hips and the pelvis forward. Squeeze through your inner thighs. Maybe keep the support of your hands onto your lower back, or you can drop the hands down to your heels. And again here, so even me, I'm tempted to lower backwards. Instead, I need to work at pressing my hips forward, trying to keep them over my knees. And if you can't breathe here, you've gone too far. Lifting out. And let's find our rabbit pose. So point the toes back, set your hips to your heels, grab a hold of your heels, and just rock up here. And releasing back into the seed version of child's pose. Finding an internal rhythm that you can maintain with your breath. Finding that sense of balance again, where the inhale is just as long as the exhale. And we'll start to wind things down. We just have one last kind of little strengthening and big stretch pose. We'll come into bow pose. So you can slide onto your belly. If you know bow is not appropriate for your body, you can do a quad stretch again, like what we were doing at the beginning of class. Otherwise, you're going to bend into both knees, grab a hold of your ankles or of your feet. Careful not to widen your knees as you do this. Stay hip width distance apart. And then push to lift on up. Think of length instead of height. One more big breath here. And release. Let's take a big chest opening stretch. I'm going to do the left side first. So kind of like a broken wing pose where you bring your left elbow at a 90-degree angle down on the mat. Palm is facing down. My elbow is just a little bit higher than my shoulder. And I'm going to roll onto my left shoulder, left hip, and left ear. I like to bend my knees and bring my knees in for this. And I like to push my right hand into the floor. So letting go of the need to work and use any kind of effort or strain. We're cooling things down, slowing everything down. Just trying to get a nice stretch into our left shoulder. You might feel this down into the bicep or into your pectorals. And you can straighten the legs, come back onto your belly. We'll do the same thing to the other side. So my right arm comes down to the mat, bend at a 90-degree angle. Elbow is a little bit higher than my shoulder. And I'm going to roll over to the right, bending my knees again here. And we're just going to roll onto our backs. So you can just flip over from where you are here. It might feel nice to pull your knees in towards your belly. And before we come into Savasana, we'll take a lying spinal twist. I'm going to open up both arms into that little cactus shape, broken wing position. With your feet flat to the floor, you can move your hips to the right a couple inches and then drop both knees over to the left. And if you want, you can always have your left hand over on your right knee if that helps you stay anchored. Let's go ahead and twist to the other side. So float your knees back up through to center. Your hips can go over to the left. And drop the knees and thighs over to the right. Try to melt that left shoulder into the mat a little more. And we'll find our full rest and relaxation in Savasana. We'll take about 3 or 4 minutes here. Take up space with your arms and your legs, closing your eyes. And you can use this time to really ask yourself what needs a little bit of infusion of vitality and eros in your life. What needs a bit more passion and energy. And also what needs a bit more balance. And you can wake back up, utilizing the breath to bring some energy back into your body. Maybe stretching your arms up overhead. And we'll roll to one side. We'll come to seated. We'll take a few rounds of box breath before closing our practice together. So box breath, Samavriti Pranayam, meant to calm the mental fluctuations of the mind, to bring about balance and equilibrium. You can keep your eyes closed, hands resting on your knees. So we'll do 5 rounds together, counting up to 5. You can almost imagine like you're tracing a box with your breath. We're going to inhale for 5, hold the breath in for 5, exhale for 5, and hold the breath out for 5. And we'll do that 5 times. So whenever you're ready, inhale 2, 3, 4, 5, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, and continue. One last round. And bring your breath back to a natural rhythm when you've completed. And we can join our hands together at the front of the heart. And let's close together by chanting Om 1 time. Inhale to chant, breathe in. Thank you so very much, everyone, for doing this spring equinox flow. I do hope that you enjoyed it and that it helped you tap into this energy of springtime. Do leave me a comment. I have some other seasonal practices, some other spring equinox flows if you wanted to try those as well. I'll leave a link to them down below. Leave me a comment, please subscribe, and hopefully we'll practice again together soon.